that what happened was Yannick played e4 and it went e6, and I think as predicted, I said to you before the stream, didn't I, Bjorn? I thought this might actually happen, and I guess it's gone d4, d5, knight c3, and a Steinitz variation of the French knight f6. I think Yannick is thinking on move 4. I think maybe he's contemplating playing bishop g5 in this position, because it's quite, he seems, I know that on all his games I looked up on the database, and previously he's always just played pawn to e5. And there's a lot of theory in this variation where black goes knight to d7. I think white then goes f4, and then you've got this sort of idea of a lot revolves around this pawn on d4, so the pressure that black's trying to exert on the pawn on d4, and then white will defend it with knight f3. And I think a lot depends on what happens in the center of the board around this pawn. White's going to defend it with bishop e3, probably queen d2, some chance of casting on the queen side. And I think then black's got ideas of playing queen to b6, at some point exchanging on d4. So Best Blunderer, thanks very much for that information. We're being told that there is obviously the live moves will be delayed by 15 minutes. So I haven't really considered, you know, quite how we're going to do this.
Challenging, but yeah,
it's going to be a lot.
You got the video stream up before the before the stream started. At least we have it down now.
Absolutely. I think that what we could do is, if we can just make sure that we don't miss any moves, we can sort of, I think we should do it absolutely live, because that way we're ahead of the curve. We can give the public what they want. CJ Stoops saying, thanks very much for the subscription, of course. Thank you to everyone who's supporting us. And CJ Stoops saying, excited Simon plays a tournament again. So let's try and keep up the...
I have to ask you, Blair, well, obviously get the moves on the board first before we start.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure after a bit of a think, which I'm surprised by, maybe like Yannick was surprised that Simon went for the French defense. But then again, Simon's played this a lot, and he's obviously quite comfortable in this variation. I know that in the past Simon's been playing the winnower, but that's getting an increasingly bad reputation at the sort of highest level. And there's some good lines that white can play against that. And the computers have shown us a number of ways where white eventually does a classic sort of alpha zero thing of playing h4 down the line against the winnower. So now knight f6 has got a much better reputation. So I think that Simon's avoiding getting into any sort of, you know, too much of a tactical preparation skirmish. But I'm still quite surprised that his opponent, you know, thought for so long. Maybe, I wouldn't say he's bluffing Simon, but he has got a number of games in the database where he's played this move e5, and it is the main move in this position. I mean, other moves are available, like bishop g5, for example. I guess you could do this delayed capture on d5 just to get into a sort of exchange French that way. But I think maybe his opponent was maybe just contemplating a little bit. Anyway, I guess we've got e5 on the board. Or has he taken on d5? I'm just trying to.
I think it just took on the.
Oh, he has taken on d5.
Yeah.
So this is I find this very strange, because he obviously, he must have had enough time. The pairings were out this morning, so he must have had enough time to know that one of Simon's main weapons. Thanks very much, CJ Stoop. One of Simon's main weapons is this variation of the French. Thank you for Basmaniak for keeping order. It's very kind of you. And so I'm just surprised. I think Simon doesn't fear him. No one fears a move like this. And I guess the reputation is to get a very solid position and avoid any sort of preparation that Simon may have had or experience that Simon has in this line. But this looks, what do you think about this?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, he knows he's facing a grandmaster of 300 rating points higher than himself, and he knows he's played the French basically all his life. So what do you do to try to avoid the most theoretical lines, or do you, like, what do you think?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. It depends on, you know, I don't know when Yannick arrived in Iceland. So I mean, if his flight was arrived 2 hours ago, then he may not have had the sort of, obviously he wouldn't have known who was playing as early as we did, you know, if he was in transit, for example. But I'm very surprised that there's a lot of, I was saying to you earlier, there's a lot of theory in this line that goes e5, the knight retreats back to d7, and the games that have been played before from memory are, it goes f4, and then black strikes back in the center, putting pressure on the pawn on d4. White develops the knight to f3 to support the pawn on d4. Knight c6, again, developing a piece, putting more pressure on this pawn on d4. White plays the dark square bishop out. Obviously, it looks temporarily as if it's in behind the pawns, but that in itself can have some ideas of taking on c5. And I think that this is a position where Simon's often played bishop e7. From looking at his games, I know from memory he tried once a classic Simon Williams move, which I believe he's also played h6. I think he played this online against a very strong young Irish player, Henry Lee, with the idea of going a bit crazy and g5. But I think this is a bit more of an online sort of, you know, rapid play repertoire. It looks a bit risky, this type of line. But I think there's also another big line where I think there's a lot of theoretical debate about taking on d4 at some point. I'm not quite sure if it's this position. And then sort of black can continue with ideas of queen b6. Or maybe there's an opportunity to play queen b6 here. And then take first. And I think this might be this idea of queen b6. And then it gets incredibly sharp after queen d2. And obviously queen takes b2. It gets very, very sharp. I mean, this is incredibly... Now, I don't think Simon would ever go in for this. And the reason being that, as you well know, he doesn't like grabbing pawns and giving his opponent the initiative.
Yeah, all the time. So somebody's pointing out in the chat that he probably knows that Simon hates the exchange. But is this a bit different from a normal French exchange?
I think it is a bit different because obviously if we just go back a couple of moves, we go to the classic variation of the French exchange where white would take on d5 straight away.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not an expert in this position. I assume there are a number of moves, but I wouldn't have thought necessarily that knight c3 is the absolute best move that you'd want to commit to. Because I guess there are some lines
where just blocking in your pawn then. Yeah.
I mean, you and I both like a Jobava London system, so it's
course.
I mean, it's pretty tough for us to overly criticise. We're probably two of the biggest Jobava London players, you know, not quite basically in the world, I guess, Bjorn, aren't we? So
well, by the number of games we are at.
Yeah, not by the quality of games. We hasten to add, but by the number of games that we had.
I always go by quantity, not quality in my set.
Yeah, well, together we've probably played easily by far and away the most. But just to go back, the Jobava London system is when white plays knight to c3. And I appreciate that it's a little bit off topic, especially bearing in mind that these e-pawns in the game that we're looking at are off the board. And obviously that does make quite a significant difference. So let's not get too sidetracked. But then I think I'm so surprised that in this position, maybe Yannick, like after playing knight c3, was really hoping that Simon would go bishop to b4 and he had something lined up in the winner with variation. But Simon hasn't played this for a couple of years, I don't think. So it would be pretty I mean, if the guy spent his time, you know, analysing a line which Simon sort of doesn't really play recently, it would be a bit strange, wouldn't it? I mean, and then you couldn't really be surprised by Simon playing knight f6, if that makes sense. That would be quite a surprise. Okay, so we've got a comment in the chat, and I'm really pleased we've got some people. You can see the chat as well, can you? Apparently, so it's maybe a bit of give and take in the world of this exchange French, because after knight f6, takes, the argument is, as being pointed out, that black's now committed the knight to f6. Okay. And I guess Basmaniak's saying that if we just go back to the normal position, maybe, for example, after takes, this immediate exchange French, if white were to play something like knight c3, I mean, there is a bit of pressure on this pawn, so, but maybe there's an argument that black might want to go bishop to b4 and follow up with knight to e7. And that way, if white, so let's just put a couple of sample moves on the board, bishop to b4. If white puts this bishop on d3, nicely eyeing up that potential of black casting on the king side, maybe black has the option of playing knight e7 with the idea of exchanging off what, in principle, would be his slightly worse minor piece, the light squared bishop. So I guess if we go back to, let's go back to the actual game. Did his opponent fall asleep? I know his opponent looks like he's played knight f3 in fairness, but maybe Peachy's had a long day and he's sort of regretting, like, you know, he's regretting his choice already. So I think what's happened is after knight f6, white's gone knight f3. So thank you as ever. Please, it would really be appreciated. We don't have we don't have an engine running. We can't really have an engine running either, unfortunately, because we're not really getting the live moves. So we have to be making it up as we go along. Okay, so Bjorn, how would you feel about this position?
As white or black?
Oh, either side. I mean, what kind of like? I mean, what are you thinking? It's not. I guess it's not quite dynamic enough for you. Is that right?
No, exactly. That's my first impression. It looks a bit dry. But I mean, yeah, there's all the pieces are on the board still. So anything, there's still room for a lot to happen.
Okay.
I would suspect. But I'm wondering, like, why. I would look for ways to kind of make this interesting as possible. And what are your thoughts? Like, how can we make this interesting now?
Absolutely.
What's the most aggressive way of playing this?
I think one of the most aggressive ways of playing this, as pointed out, CJ Stoops, so piggybacking off here, it's like maybe black could even consider some lines where you can castle on the queen side. I mean, because I guess that in this situation, because I'm not saying it's a classical move, but if white doesn't have, you can imagine if white had the option of playing c4, castle on the queen side would be very sort of risky, because very quickly that c file, if white castle on the king side, that c file will be opened up. I think the key thing is to understand how Simon thinks, of course, because I should point out that if I was black in this position, I'd be very happy indeed. It's my sort of position. I would very sort of quickly be playing moves such as bishop g4, bishop e7, castle's king side, maybe c6 if I needed to, just have a really nice solid position. But Bjorn, as you pointed out, this is kind of like not quite Simon's sort of style. So how about, can we play? And I think it's obviously a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Let me see if I can, the arrow's not really, now the board's gone live, which might be a bit annoying because I think it's now freezing me out of actually making the moves. Oh no, it's not. It's just no, it's fine. It's okay. It's back. It's just being a bit delayed.
The times are up there now.
Okay, so what do you think about this? Guy in box is saying, obviously, let's just do it. H5. I assume this is slightly tongue-in-cheek suggestion.
Feels like
I know. Of course, I think
it's a modern thing to do, right? And Leela has shown us that it has some. Yeah, exactly. That's all already annoying, I would say.
I think we can absolutely, with the little smiley face he's putting there, he's obviously not being entirely sincere in his suggestion here. So let's actually go back.
Maybe white can go for it. I don't know.
What, white can go h4? So we're saying it's like, and so like the immediate response to h5 is let's not worry about the fact it's probably a bit premature and it creates some weaknesses. We just go h4, yeah. It's just like, let's just start again. You've got your h pawn on h5. I'll put my h pawn on h4, and we'll just take it from there. But in all seriousness, okay, let's have a little. So Simon's actually having a little thing, and I mean, just as I said earlier, like Yannick had a little thing, and it's obviously we're not quite in his mind. We're not quite sure why. I think Simon's having a little.
Taking their time, aren't they?
I think Simon's having a little think here because he's somewhat surprised by his opponent's choice of this move order and taking on d5. But I don't want to spin it positively. Of course, we are a little bit biased in the stream, but I think Simon's doing that just to work out what setup he wants. I don't think he's negatively surprised in the sense that I think he's quite happy with this situation. I always think that there's an argument nowadays, and it's a double-edged sword, but by white playing this variation, he is 300 points lower rated than Simon. At least, I mean, we know that Simon's been considerably higher rated in the past. The downside is in a thank you for the subs, by the way. If I do miss some of them, of course, it's because I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the setup. Did Simon forget his theory? I don't think this is a position where you really do need a lot of theory. I think it's more to do with, the plans and the setup you kind of want.
Can I ask you, Blair? I would say you asked me like how I would feel about this position, and I would say like as black, I'm already equal. I absolutely think black's already equal. I just actually think black's got a number of choices of setting up. So Guardbox saying he likes to play the knight to e7. Of course, I mean, as much as you might like that, that's obviously an opportunity that's been taken away from him. Who knows? Maybe Simon's often played these positions with knight to e7, and sort of Yannick's thinking to himself, I've done a little job on him by getting him to play the knight to f6.
However, my opinion is I actually confidently predict, and it's probably not rocket science. It's not the biggest prediction of all time. I think Simon's going to win this game because I just think Simon's thinking about, does he put his bishop on b4? Does he put his bishop on d6? Yeah. Equally well, does he put his bishop on f5 or maybe even to g4? And of course, save a lot, forgive me, I do have a sense of humour, but you'll understand. I'll warm into it. So let's have a little prediction. What do you think his next move's going to be? I mean, as I say, I would play bishop to... I would probably play... And obviously, please feel free to join in the chat, actually. We'd love to hear your predictions of what the next move is.
Yeah. Bishop b4 looks like the most annoying move to face as white.
Well, it also gives...
Bishop b4.
You want to play bishop b4?
Yeah, that's what I was...
I mean, I guess the idea about bishop b4 is maybe, do you want the bishop on d6, though, is maybe the question. But then again, if you put the bishop on d6 early, you've got to... I guess you've always got to contend with the bishop coming out to g5, I guess. There's a bit of pressure on the d5 pawn. I don't know if Simon likes positions...
okay, yeah.
So the Chess Viking, thank you very much. That's Ingvar, who's supplying us the picture of Simon Williams. I don't understand, but did I see your Facebook and Zoom message? I don't know if I did. Let me just check. I don't know if I did see it, to be honest with you. But we're fine, by the way. We appreciate that. It's a 15-minute delay in the streaming, but we've got the live moves. So we're just going to try and keep up with it by that. Okay, so Juizioni, sorry, apologies for that. Next move is definitely bishop move. I'd say bishop b4. Let's just go back and find Simon is thinking in this current position, I believe. And has Simon actually played something to c6, by the way? Or am I just imagining that?
Let's have a look.
Am I imagining that situation?
Oh, no. I think you're right, actually. There is definitely pawn on c6.
Is it a pawn on c6?
Isn't it?
It is pawn to c6, solid move. I'm slightly...
Pawn to c6, that's really... okay.
I'm slightly surprised. I'll be honest with you, Bjorn. I'm slightly surprised by this move. I mean, it's obviously a very decent move. It's the sort of setup that I would go for. But, you know, when maybe he's waiting to see... Maybe he's waiting to see with what his opponent, which sort of setup his opponent goes for before deciding where to put his minor pieces. You know, he's wondering whether White is going to put his bishop on d3, and maybe if White ever puts the bishop on d3, which is a bit more of an aggressive position, obviously eyeing up later in the game this pawn on h7 if Black was to castle kingside, maybe then bishop g4 has even more, you know, bishop g4 has even more merit to that situation. So
that's
just
true. Yeah.
So maybe that's, but c6 seems like quite a solid move by Simon. They're both, I don't know, they both sort of seem like they've never, it's quite an early position for them both to be sort of really thinking quite hard about this, you know. Again, let's just go through the moves here. And Simon, we're pretty confident, has played, you know, pawn to c6. As I say, I must put a little graphic up. I'll make sure I do this tomorrow about who he's playing each game, because we've just got the board in front of us, and I appreciate people probably know. You can see obviously that Simon has got the black pieces. It's quite hard. He's quite a recognisable character, isn't he? A recognisable face and style. That you can see that Simon's got the black pieces from the little video clip that we've got, obviously.
Yeah. So what time did Simon arrive in on Iceland?
Well, this is quite a funny story actually, because like as this week goes on, I don't know if you know that last year the tournament was held, it was effectively held a week later. So I think last year it started on the Wednesday the 6th of April. So this year it's just a week, it's kind of a week earlier. And I think last year, I don't know if you know that he was scheduled to, unfortunately the funeral service for his father and the wake was on the Monday the 4th of April. And he was scheduled to fly out, quite sensibly, he was scheduled to fly out on Wednesday, you know, like a morning flight, 9 o'clock for us, I think it was 9:30. Couple of hours to Iceland, then still got a couple of hours to find his way around, you know, the game starts at 3 o'clock local time. Unfortunately, there was a problem with his flight on Wednesday morning. Namely that he wasn't on it.
Oh.
And so each day I was going to do a little review from how because he did play last year. He's played a number of times, one of his favourite tournaments, and I was going to do a little review of his games. But he ended up having to take a travelling bye in round one. That's very kind, Peter. Thank you. It's our pleasure as well. So, but I know he loves Iceland. So, and then he sort of really did. He got into his stride, and He got to 2.5 out of 3. So effective.
Okay.
So he got 2 wins, and he had a very good draw against a very decent French guy. And then in round 5, spoiler alert if anyone wants to look ahead, but we will sort of, I think, cover these games of what he did last year. He actually beat, I was going to say, the very strong young Indian Grandmaster, but that would be ridiculous. A strong Indian Grandmaster would be much more to the point nowadays. In Raunak Sadhwani, in quite a crazy game actually, and you can go away and look that up if you want to try and do that. If I maximize, I just might do this. If I maximize this in front of me, the connection we've got, I'm pretty sure it's gonna knock. We're pretty sure it's gonna knock Simon's live feed out of position. It's gonna knock you out of position.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to see if I can do it, but no, it's impossible to see.
Okay. So
anyway, it's castled.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? It's pretty. The thing is, though, this is he's going to fag before move 10. Absolutely. I mean, this is
exactly.
Yeah,
it's a move 7. I'm sure he spent like 40 minutes.
It's possible to crop and zoom. Guy in box has done it before. Wish you were here, Guy. I've not done it before, and I'm not sure that I want to start doing it now, particularly. But of course,
the quality of the video is not good enough. I've zoomed as much as I can on my end, and then I still can't see anything on that screen. So.
Yeah, I think if I maximize, I could make it bigger in front of us. I could try that, but of course the issue might be. Let me just do that now and see if people prefer this type of look. I'm not so worried about. But does that help us out at all to see actually what's going on? I mean, It's a little bit messier, but maybe that's about as much as we want to go. I'm not too worried about the other parts of the stream. It doesn't look quite so neat and tidy, but we'll move it down a little bit there just so we can have the little Reykjavik Open sign there. Maybe we'll have it like that. We'll work out as days go by if I can get a bit of a bigger screen, because as I say, I didn't realise that's the one. I guess this is the one. How do you feel about this 15-minute delay? I don't really think it's necessary.
I was thinking about it earlier, and I suspect that when people catch on to us doing this stream, there will be a lot of bead rumors against Simon now if he kind of wins the tournament and we're streaming everything. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I assume that in principle it's an anti-cheating policy. But I guess the issue is nowadays, I mean, they've got metal detectors, they've got scanners, you can observe people's behaviours. If there's any suggestion, you can really keep an eye on people quite closely. I think, we know that there's, without going into it too deep, we know that there's been some issues with people, people cheating, obviously, or potentially cheating, or the accusation of cheating. Obviously, there are some people who cheat. But I say that generally chess is really pretty clean when it comes to, definitely when it comes to over the board. I mean, and the idea that, not just because Simon's a GM, but his opponent as well, the idea that, someone's going to be sort of signalling him, it's not impossible, but someone's going to be signalling him moves. I don't think I think it's fine. And I'm certainly not casting any aspersions on his opponent.
Just kidding there, but
I think it's a bit strange. I mean, obviously, it's just a little bit. It's a bit difficult for us to try and broadcast it, I guess. I mean, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes it really hard.
I mean, especially, I think it makes it really hard if it's like when we've got the live stream of them actually playing. I mean, if we didn't have that, we could actually just do it. We'd have to do it on a 15-minute delay ourselves. But then everyone's in the same. Everyone's in the same boat. But then, of course, we can't really have. We can't really have the player cam
interaction. Yeah, we can't talk to chat if we are on a 15-minute delay. That's not going to work. So.
But I'm just saying we could broadcast 15. We could just start our broadcast 15 minutes later. But then we wouldn't have the one downside is we wouldn't actually have the live camera feed of the. We couldn't really have the live camera feed because everyone would know pretty much what's going on. And I think there's a little bit of a theatre of watching Simon play. It looks like he's played. It looks like the way he made a move, they played knight B to D7.
Let's have a look. So he didn't castle. Okay.
So I think the way he moved his piece, he's not going to go on bishop. He's going to, which is that's an interesting move. I wouldn't really necessarily been expecting that myself. If he did play knight,
I mean, I thought castling just made a lot of sense, but is he just where is that knight going now?
I think his plan must be to keep his maybe he's even keeping an option of castling queenside. It seems a little bit Seems a bit interesting because white can be quite quick there.
Yeah.
Went e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3. Simon understandably played what he normally does nowadays, plays knight f6. As I was saying before, bishop b4, which is a, the Widowworth variation, is a little bit, there's a lot of preparation involved in this. And it's playable, of course, and still some people love it, but knight f6 has just got a much solider reputation. And I think that he wouldn't have been at all disappointed to see his opponent play e takes d5. There's a lot of theory in this e5 line. I know Simon's very familiar with it and he plays it an awful lot. But this e takes d5 as a move, I don't think, I'm not saying it would have not surprised Simon, but I think he would have been pretty happy to have it on the board. He does joke on stream. Simon's opponent's rating's 21-37. I do apologise for not having these things up. When I go for a brief break, I will try and get these things live on stream so you can actually see it. That is my pilot error, I must confess to that. We weren't quite sure whether we were going to get these feeds with the ratings, etc. on, but we haven't got that. So going back to this, I think Simon would have been slightly surprised with his opponent's choice. Simon, I think, would have been surprised that his opponent didn't play e5, but I think would have been surprised in quite a sort of positive way almost. Because although Simon jokes a lot about the dullness of the exchange French, that's maybe he does that because water is coming through the window. That's quite a nice little shot, actually. Didn't notice that before. Maybe because, like, when Simon's playing on stream, for example, he wants to have a bit of fun. The exchange French, the classic way of the exchange French is considered quite dry, isn't it? Because the pawn structure is symmetrical. You don't have a lot of tension in the centre. Both sides are very solid. Playing c4 or black playing c5 comes with the downside of having maybe an isolated queen's pawn position. So it's quite a bit harder to get a lot of dynamic play early doors in the position. But I know that, and I possibly shouldn't give too much away, I know that when Simon's playing a tournament like this, when he's playing in Iceland, and he's playing an opponent who, even though Simon's got the black piece of slight disadvantage, he'd very much be hoping to win the game. Let's not make any bones about that. He is 300 points rated higher than his opponent. He'd very much be looking to win this game. The exchange French does have all the exchange French type positions. If we just show what his opponent did, he went knight c3 first, knight f6, and then took on d5. Once again, the position does have this symmetrical pawn structure, but we do have this slight imbalance already of white having committed the knight to c3. Black's not in any way compelled and certainly didn't put the knight on c6. These positions, I do think, as pointed out by Bjorn earlier, are probably computer pretty equal straight away. Arguably, what's not. All in Naluz. I don't know the exact time control, but it looks like, okay, it's 1 hour 30 to start with and 30 seconds bonus per move. And I guess at move 40, they then get an added amount of time. Again, pretty professional job here that I know this, but it's definitely 1 hour 30 for 40 moves plus 30 seconds a go. And as JT's pointing out, I think Simon would be very happy because he's got no issues. He's not walking into any hardcore preparation. He's not walking into any lines which his opponent clearly he's not done. I don't think he ever intended to play this. I think he just got into this position here and he's sort of maybe just psyched himself out of playing the most theoretical move, which is pawn to e5, which is what he's played a number of times before. Maybe he sat there and he thought, oh, Simon's played the French, he's played the Steinitz, the knight f6 variation, because I've got so many games in the database in this position, which the guy has, and he's always played e5 before. And he's played this kind of rather dull. I think it kind of looks a little bit, dull, but I think Simon's going to be very happy in this position. The game continued, knight f3. We weren't quite sure about why Simon played c6, but it's obviously a very decent, solid move. I'm just saying that because we would thought he maybe would have brought one of his pieces out a little bit before committing to this pawn to c6, although I think it's very much part of Black's setup. White continued in a slightly solid manner, bishop e2, and going back to JT's point, which I really like, why would you do something? You're not really putting any questions. You've got this one opportunity to play, I'm sure Yannick's played some strong opponents before, but kind of like there's an argument that you want to put, it's round one, Simon could be a bit rusty. You want to kind of put him under pressure, and giving him such a comfortable position so early in the game, Simon's not exactly going to be worried about what's happening here. The game continued, castles, very understandable. Simon going with this, we believe knight b to d7, very much with the idea of coming around to f8. I think g6 is much more likely than e6 as an idea. But the thing, we wondered why he had this move on, and maybe he wants to retain the option of putting his bishop out to f5 or g4 later in proceedings, depending again on how white proceeds. So this was the last move that we had, knight b to d7. Just trying to work out what white played. I would have predicted white plays rook e1, but that may or may not be the case. Again, if anyone's got sharper eyes than me to be able to see what's happened on the board, I'm just wondering. I mean, I think rook e1 would be a very natural move by white. I don't know if Victor Stoyanov, good to see you. Queen d3. Did white possibly play queen d3? Really? It's a strange move, isn't it? Is the match over or suspended? No, I just think they're both taking Simon may have taken a little comfort break, as they like to say. Errors already occurred. I wonder if this is like just queen d3. What is this? I don't know what this is. What is this all about? Anyway, what do people think? What do people think? Would they rather be white or black here? I don't know. I mean, I think I'd be very happy. I'd be very happy to have the black piece in this position. If white just did play queen d3, I've got to be honest with you. I'm probably quite good that I'm go on the box. I totally agree. It's probably quite good that I'm commentating here, and you know, for those who don't know, I'm about 2250 player, and the reason I think it's probably quite good that I'm commentating here is because I'm not sure that Grandmaster would really understand what white's moves are doing, and I'm struggling to understand. If white did play queen d3, that seems like I don't know. It doesn't seem like the move makes a lot of sense to me. I'm surprised white didn't just play rook e1. So surely white moved the queen. Can't tell if it's queen d2 or queen. I assume obviously W Roger means queen d3. Clearly not. And of course, yeah, that's fine. Obviously just a typo. But queen d2, that wouldn't make queen d2. Does that make any more sense? That makes arguably even less sense than queen d3 because clearly it's blocking in the dark squared bishop on c1. Let's just think, what is the point of queen d3? I mean, surely the bishop wanted to be on d3 at some point. He can't really have played this, can he? And Victor Stoyanov, of course, good afternoon to him. He's saying, surely he didn't put it on d2. I mean, I agree. I wouldn't. Surely, there's an argument, surely he didn't put it on d3. I mean, why would you move? Why wouldn't white sort of go bishop g5, for example, and then queen to d2? They seem like a little bit more sensible moves. I don't really like white's position anyway. I think white's really goblin sheer. Good afternoon. Hope you're well. I just don't really understand how white's played this. I think he's going to be pretty unhappy. You know, I suspect Simon will win this game. Don't know if I should be making predictions like that. But I think the guy's going to be pretty disappointed with his sort of like over the board, making it up as he goes along. I mean, not everyone loves preparation. Maybe he's just enjoying what he's doing. But this sort of line, if he did play queen d3, let's have a little think about why did white want to go queen d3? This just looks like it's a potential target to me sooner or later. I mean, if Simon at some point, I'm not saying this is what he's going to play here, but knight f8 looks like a consistent move in terms of the way that Simon's been playing this position. Just let me move this a little bit off the screen so you can see the A file, just in case that has any relevance to the position. I think knight f8 is a perfectly reasonable move here for Simon. I mean, that's consistent with keeping his options open in the position. You know, maybe then coming into g6. I mean, the thing about this queen on d3 is now, you know, the knight is now, it looked like after Simon went knight b to d7, he had this idea of coming knight to f8. As pointed out, maybe there's some idea of putting the knight on e6. I suspect g6 is more likely, but I wouldn't rule out the knight ever coming to e6. Of course, it would just block in this bishop here. But now with this queen on d3, if the knight ever lands on the square f4, or perhaps black puts a bishop on f4 and exchanges the knight, if those bishops get exchanged, I don't think he gets to do that. The knight coming to f4 has a little bit more, you know, a bit more venom to it, with that queen being somewhat exposed on d3. I wonder what white's plan is with queen d3. I mean, let's have a little prediction in the chat. What do we expect Simon to do? One, get back to the board at some point. Okay, so maybe his long-term plan is to move the bishop to f3 after removing the knight. A cough button required, excuse me. I think that's absolutely impossible. So just go back. The live position we believe is definitely here. Black's just given the check on h5, and we're just basically white has. Well, white only. White,
two legal moves, I think.
and not only that, but they all make some sense. By the way, I was just thinking, it's quite rare to have 3 legal moves, all of which make some sense. Obviously, just confirming their king f1, knight f3, and of course pawn f3. But it's quite.
I have pawn f3 as well.
It's quite, and I think that all makes some sense. I think it looks like it's quite remarkable that White's now got his head in his hands, and I don't think I've ever been in a position where I've got only three legal moves, all of which seem to like not be great for me. But which one's the best of the bad options? It's like I think instinctively.
What f3 then? Should we have a look at f3 or?
I mean,
instinctively.
Okay, let's have a look at f3. So this is a live position, just let people know. I think instinctively I would rule out king f1 because I feel that even if I'm surviving, I'm not going to survive for long. My king has got no hope of running away. I think I'm in trouble here as white, but I kind of want. Let's play f3. Yeah, okay, and let's work on the basis that at least I've got some dreams of surviving. I'm not saying prospering.
The pressure on that, so if you double up the rooks, and then there's a bishop coming to f4.
Yeah. As you point out, the big problem
is it just
like
impossible to defend?
Maybe in the very short term, but it doesn't look like it's realistic to do it for any time. You know, this is a major problem with f3, I guess. So there's problems with all the moves, aren't there?
We have to check if it works.
Okay, rook ae8. Okay, so this immediate threat of taking on e3.
So
what happens? Can I run away?
That's what I was thinking, and then we use the other knight. The other knight goes back to f1, and we see if we can kind of hold.
And Bergmeister's right. Black already has 2 pawns, which is fine. Double the rooks, and the knight moves its mate. Exactly. So white's in a horror. This is the point. Your point is that white might want to come back here. But the point is, white's kind of like stuck.
At least losing another, exactly.
He's kind of stuck forever in that position, isn't he? He's just, and also the f3 pawn's under attack.
Queen f3 check, and then
this is
then
just
it's winning a piece as well.
This is grim.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to rule out f3. Just looks too. Bishop G. So Chris Baker's saying Bishop G3 here. Okay, so attacking the rook. One's after rook e2 there. Oh my word! It looks really.
There's another move he can make actually.
Yeah.
Resigns.
I think it's like it might end up that way, but I don't. Maybe it's a bit premature.
Not like he has 5 minutes now, and it's kind of.
Chris is absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I just take a good f4 was just cavalier at best. Anyway, Chris is pointing out this is winning. This actually move looks excellent. This looks winning for black. The point being, if the rook can't move along the back rank because he has to support the e3 knight.
Okay. Right.
If the rook was to move to e2, this leaves a massive problem. And now that's just winning, isn't it? We're just going to be busting through here. He did play knight f4 JT, and his opponent snapped it off in less than 2 minutes, which we thought was a little bit, cavalier to say the least. Yeah, this is winning. So let's just go back. He's still. So I think we're down. I think we're reduced now. By the way, to knight f3. But then again, the problem with this is we can't run away either, because we have to keep an eye on the knight on f3. Aldo's saying in any case, the opponent's not going to find the best defence. I mean, that might be true. He's not really played very well today, unfortunately. I don't really want to, I disagree with this choice of opening. I just disagree with it over the board. Why think for 15 minutes and then play e takes d5? It didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Oh, this is also horrible. He's playing f3, I think.
Well, it's got a. Oh well, sorry. I don't know why I'm looking. Do you see me? I was so ingrained at looking at the actual live feed that it will be up on the board in a second. Well, Aldo does make a reasonable point. He might not find the absolute best defence anyway, but I don't think there is a particularly good one anyway. He has played f3, so this is such a natural move, rook a2e8, isn't it? I mean, of course, Simon. The one thing I love about Simon is, I get excited, but he's never complacent. Even if he thinks rook e8, a8 is the best move, he will give it some consideration. Because there might be other options. For example, I'm not saying they're good moves. Clearly, this is not a good move because it allows white to run away. But he will look at the other options. He won't suddenly you know, I do this a lot, and I think it's a great way to understand what happens. I get into some nice positions in chess games. As soon as I rush into a move thinking it's incredibly good, it's the sort of as soon as I make a blunder, basically. And it all goes, you know, all the hard work out the window, gone.
Yeah.
So there we go. What do I think of the French defence? I mean, I think it's pretty solid. I think, you know, some question, it's not necessarily for me, I don't think. But Simon certainly plays it very well. And I know that people like Georg Meyer swear by it, incredibly strong German player, plays it all the time. So clearly, I think, you know, playing the line that Simon plays, it's considered to be very playable nowadays, both by the computers and of course, I shouldn't get too deep into computers because chess is a practical game. It's a human game. You wouldn't play the French though, would you, Bjorn?
No, I would play anything Simon plays. I mean, if he plays it can't be that bad, no?
No, it's definitely not that bad, is it? I mean, I think it's a bit. I guess it's a little bit. And he has, of course, and not of course. But yeah, I mean, rookie. Let's go to live board.
Looks so simple. It's just checking that it works.
But fair play to him. He still took nearly 2 minutes just to. I think he knows here.
That's very professional. He has 15 minutes.
I think he knows how strong his position is. I think he knows, even though he's got 15 minutes on the clock. Another great example to young players, particularly, or anyone, how much we try and blitz our opponents in their time trouble. And that's kind of the worst thing that we can do. Let's just keep trying to find the best moves. Let's keep ramping up the pressure as much as we can, as opposed to immediately putting a move on the board which may or may not be the best move. Just trying to buffalo them, you know, trying to flag them, trying to just get them into making a mistake. It's not the best way of playing. You know, this position is so good for black. It looks like you can just win on merit. There's no point in rushing it through and you know, playing something which is suboptimal. White is close. I don't see White surviving many moves. Do you?
No.
Okay, let's try it. Okay, let's go knight f1. That was all right, dear. Let's go knight f1.
So here's the challenge then. How many more moves is White gonna make before he resigns?
Do you want my answer?
I say 3. Yeah.
I think 5.
Okay.
Including this one, I think 5. I'm not sure what he's played, but he hasn't played knight f1, so I might be thinking less now.
I'm thinking 8.
I think he might have gone king d1. He's gone king d1. Maybe maybe king d1 survives. King d1 maybe survives a few more moves, but probably without ever having any hope of turning this around, I guess.
Just bishop f4 now.
So Tech and Chess has asked the question: if Simon has a very solid tournament, will he be able to go back above 2,500, or is that just too big a leap in one tournament? It's almost certainly too big a leap in one tournament. The reason being that what's called his K factor is 10, so he'd have to get he'd have to outscore his expected score by 3.9 points, basically, which is almost impossible. Yeah. So basically, Tech and Chess, if he had a very, very good tournament, he could maybe gain. You know, if he gained 15 to 20 points, that would be fantastic. Be a very strong rating performance. Like, that'd probably be a 2,600 rating performance. So that alone, you know, if he gained like 15 points, that would be, bearing in mind his rating's already 2461, that'd probably be like 2,600 plus performance. Okay, back to the game. Let's not get too distracted with the questions, although I very much appreciate them. What's Simon thinking about here? Is he thinking about bishop g3 or bishop f4?
I was thinking bishop f4, but I think Baker mentioned bishop d4.
Oh, was this? Oh, sorry, is this back to the line that Chris Baker was talking about?
Okay. Similar idea.
Oh god, so this is just. Oh god, so this is almost winning on the spot.
So what do you do now?
So we'd have to play Rookie 2 because do we have to play Rookie 2?
I think he played this. I think it just played bishop d3.
This could be. Your prediction of 3 moves, Bjorn, could be very close. The guy might not even make the. He might. This is ugly, isn't it? Bishop g3. Oh yeah, this is. Well, you know what? I've got to say, I'll balance it out. I've been crushed by Simon so many times that I've got to say, if I've been a little bit unfair to his opponent, I slightly apologise because I've been absolutely crushed by Simon. Yeah. More times than I care to remember. He almost retired me, Bjorn. Would you believe? Because like the guy's too
And
good.
it-
I can't, can't compete.
And it's the factor that when you play like this type of players and grandmasters, that you're gonna know you're gonna lose before you even start, right?
Well, you're certainly going to be. You're certainly going to get crushed a load of times. Absolutely,
exactly. Yeah. And that kind of makes you play worse than you normally would, I feel.
But I don't know. I will answer the question. Do you have a football team, Bjorn? Very quickly. I think we're taking it for granted.
It's Liverpool.
And my football team is Manchester City. I have been, just to let you know, I have followed them for over 40 years. So I'm not one of these, glory hunters. Yeah. I've been I was born up in that direction. So I've been hence the sort of like the sky blue coloration, Let's not get too distracted. But I have been a Man City fan for like 42 years now. Would you believe, Bjorn?
That's true. A lot of Scandinavians do follow Liverpool. Sorry, I didn't hear your question. I was reading that.
No, don't worry. You carry on. Just ignore it. I'd be honest with you.
English football is huge in especially in Norway, actually. We always used to show English football on Saturdays from early 80s or late 70s, I think. And then, a lot of Liverpool and United fans.
And I quite like this. We sparked a big debate in the chat. A big shout out to Blue Mosaics. He's been Manchester City 27 years, longer than me, since 1953. Ooh. Wow, that's impressive. Only since 1980 for me, but there we go. Anyway, look, let's not get too distracted. Have we got any moves on the board? We should talk about these things, by the way, chat, when we get a little bit more lull in proceedings. We are actually very much the business end here, so if you'll excuse me much, I love to talk about various things. We should do it when there's a bit more of a contemplative moment. Let's see what's happening. Live position. Simon has played Bishop G3. White is, just to give you an update, White's down to 1 minute 30. He's going to shake his hand almost, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Are there 3 moves?
Well, I think it's been 2, Bjorn. Or 1 maybe.
One
King
move.
D1, I think. 1 before. If you count that.
One
move by White, I think.
Move.
King D1 is all that's been played. So, I don't know if you're talking about black moves or not, but this is...
Looking at some kind of mayhem now. But no.
Well, the problem with this position is, I don't know what the best move is, but if you play a move such as like Knight F1, the problem is you're giving all the material back and more, and Black's attack still continues. So it's kind of like, if I was White, I might just play Rook E2 and just hope for the best, if you know what I mean. It's just like, if I'm lost, I'm lost. There's kind of like, if I just give my Rook away, Black's got more material, he's still attacking. White's still got his Rook stuck on A1. It's just... he has played Rook E2. He has played Rook E2.
Come on. And then a little move, and then we resign.
Simon's sink back and like... You think Queen H1 is resigns?
I hope so. Or maybe...
What happens after Knight DF1? Am I missing something? Oh God! I'll tell you what happens after... Oh, here it goes. Oh, it's beautiful. You can take on E3, can't you?
Yes.
And then undermine this queen. The queen that was doing this job on... The queen can't even do its job on D3. That's quite amusing, isn't it? The queen that was misplaced on D3, if we look at this line here, it can't even do its job properly from here because it's overloaded. So it's, the queen that should never have gone to D3 isn't even doing its job properly on D3. It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? Anyway, back to the live board. It's gone Rook E2, Queen H1, and he has gone Knight DF1.
Yep. And
he's not going to miss Rook. There's many ways to win, but Rook takes E3 is by far and away the easiest, isn't it? Just ends the game. I think it's going to go Rook takes E3, resigns. I really do.
That's the flashy way of winning.
Do you think it's the flashy way? I just think it just wins though, doesn't it? If that makes sense, It's like
yeah.
So it looks good, but it is just definitely it's just very clear cut, isn't it?
You could still play my old Bishop F4 and just overload everything.
Yeah, in fairness, yeah. You're right, Bishop F4 needs no calculation, but equally well, Rook takes E3.
Nothing. Like everything is just stuck.
There he goes. Rook takes E3. What a good move. Yeah,
exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like this is the way he wants to win.
Yeah, this is good. I think he's going to take. Is he going to even bother taking here? And
take with the. Yeah.
I think he's going to shake his hand. He's going to shake his hand.
Was that 4 moves or 3 moves?
Well, 3, I think. Well, King D1. No, I think like
shake,
4 maybe.
Shake.
Yeah, he's going to shake his hand
before.
too. Yeah, because it's just going to be a piece down and pawns down, and there he goes. He's going to do it, I reckon. Well done to Simon. Because the only move here, the only thing you could be thinking about is shaking his hand, because rook takes e3 is the only sort of move to think about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think, rook takes e3 or shake hands is kind of the only two options here, So why not just play... There he goes.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Hey!
Yeah. A lovely start by Simon. A beautiful game. Aldo, tenor says he moves. Quick, we should have taken that bet. Damn it. Mind you, in fairness, if I'd taken the bet against Aldo, apparently, Bjorn, I'm not a good payer. I'm a welcher, so apparently if I'd taken the bet, I just had to take off the bill, basically. So there we go. Anyway, massive congratulations to Simon. A fantastically accurate game by him. He didn't put a foot wrong, did he, Bjorn? Let's just very much go back. For anyone who's joining us late, Bjorn, do you need to rush off? You've got like 10 minutes, is that right?
Sure.
Brilliant. Let's just go back, because I think Simon did put a foot wrong, and let's just go through it. For those of you who are just joining us, and we can sort of recap. Congratulations to Simon. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Let's just recap what happened.
To see what they're talking about. They're looking at some pieces.
Oh, I see, okay, so.
It's always interesting to try to figure out.
Okay, that's a good point, actually.
He's pointing at G3. He's wondering if he had to play G3 or not, maybe.
It's always quite nice when the players are cordial and nice and have a little chat as well. I'm sure that, with all due respect, I don't know if Simon's going to be that keen to analyse that game, because it would be, dare I say, it's like, a bit of a lesson, and Simon would be quite keen. Bear in mind, he's got 2 rounds tomorrow.
He's a very, very nice guy, and
sure.
Takes his time with people.
As you can see there, of course, he's doing that. Anyway, as we can't, there we go. Yeah, so
let's have a look.
Let's just go through the game again for those just joining us. Thank you very much. We understand if people leave now, especially if they've supported the stream and seen the game already. But we'll just have a little bit of and I think it's a beautiful game to recap, isn't it, Bjorn? Because it's such a positive start for Simon with the black pieces. So the game went e4, and I was thinking, would Simon go here or maybe here? I can't say too much, because other people might get a bit of an insight to what he's might be or maybe not thinking about in his games to come. So I need to be a little bit careful of what I say, but I will. It was clear that the French was always going to be an option. His opponent went d4, d5, and as he always does, or as I've only found on his databases, white went knight c3. Maybe he was hoping for some reason Simon would go bishop b4. The winner were variation, which, as I said, Simon hasn't really played for a while. I know that he doesn't really trust this variation. I'm not saying he'll never play it again, but he doesn't really trust it, Bjorn. And as I said, the computers are coming up with some nice ways to play from the white side of this nowadays, which doesn't rule it out, but it kind of puts the onus back on black to find, some better ways of playing from a practical point of view. So, as expected, Simon did play what's called the Steinitz variation. We were thinking, we mentioned briefly, would white have this bishop g5, h4 sort of trick? Would he do something different? But he surprised us all. Instead of playing what he's sort of played every time in the past, e5, which is very much considered to be the best move. It's very much the most theoretical move for white in this position. As we talked about, the game continues after knight d7. Let's focus on what actually happened in the game. His opponent thought, I'll tell you what, how long did he think for in this position? He thought for 4 minutes before playing e takes d5. It felt like a lifetime, but...
Yeah, but next a couple of moves.
Yeah, you're correct. So naturally, black takes back the pawn. He then played what seems like a reasonable move, knight f3. Simon went c6, which is a very solid move. We might have been expecting Simon to do something.
Surprised us a little bit,
A very good move, though, by the way, of course. And what I love about this is it keeps his options very much open, depending on whether white develops here or here, etc. By playing c6, you're supporting the pawn on d5, it's quite natural. You're reserving the options of how you develop, your pieces next, and which order you develop them as well. So c6 is probably always going to be a move that black's probably going to play. And now you're absolutely right. So this is where we started to really, I think we read it correctly, where white was sort of like freewheeling it over the board. He spent 14 minutes on the rather suboptimal bishop e2.
Yeah.
Why do you think he didn't? Why do you think he didn't play bishop d3 here? By the way, I mean, was he?
try calculating how much he spent on the next 5 moves, because I think that was like an hour. Or 5 moves in the beginning.
The fight. He spent nearly an hour on the next 6 moves.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is an
And then
extraordinary amount. Yeah, brilliant point, Bjorn.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant spot. He spent an hour on the next 6, and this is like a position which
time management wise, it's just like you need that time, because you know there's going to be complicated positions later on in the game, and you really need time to think. And he spent, what was it, 5 seconds of taking in a very critical position.
Yeah, just to let you know, VSA, unfortunately we're not going to be joined by Simon today, so I shouldn't encourage you to leave us, but obviously we might sort of see if we can set that up later in the week. It'd be lovely to have him join us today after a game like that, of course. But I think we're just sort of getting our feet under the desk, unfortunately. Especially, it's really sad that we can't be joined by Simon today, because obviously after a game like this, I'm afraid that is the way it goes. So if you want to leave us, we're not going to hold you here on the false expectation that Simon is going to appear. Sorry, Bjorn, back to you. So you actually made a great point there. I wonder if he was just thinking, if I go bishop d3, bishop g4, it's the sort of thing though, if he'd prepared this in advance, he'd know about this. Do you know what I mean? That's why I'm a little bit confused. Well, anyway, as soon as he goes bishop b2, you kind of felt it's so unambitious, isn't it?
I think you're kind of right. I think he did it all through the game. Is kind of always thinking about like, what is he threatening and how can I stop his threat, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
Very kind of passively mindset.
And the problem is, it's all like, I think we understand. We're up against it when we play as someone of Simon's caliber, and sort of that's an understandable, sort of somewhat natural response to kind of play. Not want to make a mistake, play really solidly, play moves like bishop b2 where we don't, whether we start not seeing ghosts, but we don't want to allow, these pins on f3, but then again,
exactly.
We see the problem is
anything uncomfortable, right?
It's a very slippery slope though, because we play a little bit passively, then we put a bit of pressure on ourselves, then we've got to start to find, increasingly we've got to find more and more accurate moves, and we certainly can't afford moves later in the game like queen d3. Let's move on. So Simon just played a beautiful game. I mean, if anyone wants to look at that, GingerGM's joined us in the chat. Congratulations, Simon, a fantastic game by you. So we may not have, I said we may not have an interview with him, but we do have him joining us. A fantastic game by Simon. Really well played. Give him your congratulations. Green Hat's back. Green Hat's back.
Green Hat's back stealing stuff. Oh no.
Stealing Simon's score sheet. As Simon taught us though, let's just play some decent moves. And so bishop d6, castles, and very nice move order that Simon had played here, I think. Knight b to d7. And keeping his options open, maybe not so much for castle and queen side, but obviously maybe bringing the knight round early doors, I think. And this is where I really just started worrying about what his opponent was up to, basically. So
this is where, queen d3 came in.
And it's just an
we're still trying. And again, I think we later saw that his thinking was, I need to move this knight over to the king's side, maybe for defensive purposes, maybe.
Yeah.
So I need to first move the queen away. So where should I put the queen?
I mean, the problem is, again,
something like that.
I mean, it's already this like baby bishop. You can't really play a move like bishop d3 here because it just makes no sense. It makes no practical sense having just put it on e2. But the queen on d3 is like, So anyway, white went queen d3, and already I think we got the feeling that white was, not maybe making the right moves here. And I think quite humorously, as pointed out in the chat just a few comments ago, the white queen never left d3.
It never left d3.
And it wasn't even capable of doing its job. It wasn't even capable of doing its job on d3, which is like a bit.
When it came, when all
was said and done, it was trying to defend the knight on e3 and the knight on f1. It wasn't even capable of doing both its jobs. Yeah. So it's pretty harsh, wasn't it? Okay, let's carry on. So Simon did play, after some debate, Simon did castle. We thought that'd be the case. Knight d1. This is where we finally got the right. We've got this brilliant stream now. We've got the live board, which is fantastic. Obviously, that ruled out, or certainly reduced the prospect or the possibility of going Simon, Rook G6 after knight F3. That's definitely correct, apparently, we think. But it looked good. Everything all looked good. Anyway, let's not get distracted. Simon played the understandable Rook E8. White went Bishop G5. Knight F8. Rerouted the knight as we expected. Knight E3. We thought this was an interesting move, didn't we? But obviously what Simon did...
Yeah, we talked about that, right?
It was your idea, Bjorn. I really liked it, I've got to say, because it immediately put the question to the bishop on G5. However, knight G6, perfectly good. I mean, basically Simon didn't put foot wrong in this game at all. Really did.
True.
White felt he already needed to worry about the prospect of knight F4, so he played G3. A move that surprised me, but I believe might have been White might have already been to the point now where he needed to do something like this, I believe, Bjorn, yeah?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, again, it's like he's seeing the threat and he's just trying to stop them without creating his own game.
Yeah, indeed. Coca-Cola Gambit, I'm afraid we can't go to any other boards. We don't have that. We've only got the live stream, which is up to date. So we'd have to do it by delay, I'm afraid. So just to let you know, we are only really going to be focusing on Simon's games. We might have a little look around tomorrow in running if there's a bit of a delay in someone thinking. But right at the moment, we're only going to focus on Simon's games, just to let you know. But thank you for joining us. And obviously, David Fitzsimmons, a very good player from Ireland. Hopefully he's doing well. Let's continue. So Simon now went H6, and already it looked very comfortable already for here, didn't it? Like, not White's not losing in any way. You'd be happy here as Black, wouldn't you, Bjorn?
Yep. I obviously didn't see this Baker's idea. And
I didn't see this. I mean, not as you know, I'd never seen knight F4. You know. But this again, already started to look...
What he did was just like he saw the idea and he prepared it with a couple of moves first.
Absolutely. So the game continued knight D2, and this is where Chris Baker, International Master, points out to us this brilliant idea, or this brilliant concept of knight F4. The point being that if White takes, the Queen comes in, and we're going for a very immediate direct attack on H2. I'm sure at this moment, Simon already had seen the idea, I believe, I imagine, whether he's in the, even if he's left us, I'm sure he wants to relax, leave us capably in charge. But what he did, as pointed out, was he just started building up the pressure against the White King, didn't he? Bishop H3.
Yes.
A Rook E1 followed a natural move, and this beautiful move. And Simon loves a Rook swinger, or a Rook lift, as some people call it. And as you pointed out, Bjorn, so well, he's just building up the pressure, and suddenly knight F4 kept increasing in danger, didn't it, for White? It kept increasing in danger. Mm-hmm. And then, just to get me back, my sort of comments that Yannick Kather, and I guess I really don't think he played one of the best games of his life. We know the pressure he's under. We know it's not easy. He played my suggestion here, which is not a good move. So let's just level. Let's be honest. Level. I feel I've got to level the stakes. I suggested Bishop F1, only to take up that key defensive square which I wanted to use for my knight in the other lines. And I got hit massively with knight F4 and Simon.
And it's not. I mean, like it's an obvious candidate move. But again, like if you can hover move 15, he spent 10 seconds on that move, and this is like critical to find the defense here, because there's stuff happening and you're being attacked.
I mean,
right?
yes. I mean, Simon spent 12. So I felt that time sort of flew or didn't stood still. I'm not quite sure. It's quite strange, but Simon did spend 12 minutes on knight F4. His opponent actually did spend 2 minutes, but I think that's an incredibly committal, whether it's correct or not. Yeah. Playing G takes F4 so quickly. And then it was to show. It did get shown that he must have missed something or overlooked something, or he just felt maybe he felt so unhappy about the prospects of playing Queen to B3 that he just wasn't prepared to suffer. If you know what I mean. Maybe he just thought, look, I'm in deep trouble here. I'm going to grab the piece. If I get checkmated, so be it. But I'm not going to play Queen B3 and just suffer. I mean, my position is so bad. Maybe I just got to grab the material and try and hope that Simon's missed something or I don't get checkmated. Either way, he might have been able to carry on with a move such as Queen B3. But we're very confident that White's doing very well here, weren't we? And as you pointed out, Bishop takes F1. looks very good. Ideas, you know, the rook's coming across, the knight, most important, the knight's coming in to h3. Maybe even this pawn on d4 is just hanging in some lines, Bjorn, you know, nothing to see here, and then the knight's hanging on d2.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just as simple as that. You know, there's some lines like that where you don't need to checkmate, you're just in a good position. Whatever happened, his opponent very quickly grabbed it, and the end was almost in sight already, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was. I guess the Queen H5 was the...
Yeah, that was a really nice move, wasn't it? Yeah.
Fine.
Let's go.
I noticed
Sorry,
the engine is saying like that was his only move maintaining an advantage.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's have a look. Queen takes f4. No point in playing knight f3. Just give the knight away. The attack continues. Doesn't help matters. Just, you know, you might as well give up at that point.
Like, there's a piece.
You might as well take the material and you know, basically, so God, you know, show me your stuff, Simon. Prove what you've got. Makes a lot more sense. And then Queen takes h2 followed. King f1. Queen takes h2 check. King e2. The king trying to run away. And as you pointed out, Bjorn, this really important move, stopping, you know, pretty much.
Yeah, I see there's other kind of keeping advantages as well with doubling rooks even here, but
they're nowhere near as good, are they?
Queen h5. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've got to say, I know we're understandably biased on this stream, not just because we're covering Simon's games, but he's a friend of ours as well. But he backed himself, you know, he took him 12 minutes to back himself. He clearly saw Queen h5 in this position all the way back when he played Knight f4.
Yeah,
you know? I'm not suggesting he wouldn't have a reconsideration here, but he clearly saw. I'm sure he would have believed that if he'd had to play a move such as Rook a to e8, he's still doing very well. But it's far less clear cut once the king starts to sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
The king's not stuck.
Exactly. If you know his king can't escape his attack, then you know there will be continuous problems, right?
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure. I reckon Simon saw a line such as I'm predicting here. I reckon he saw a move such as Queen. I reckon he saw Queen h5, and I reckon he thought, for example, if White plays King f1, I might not have an immediate, absolute knockout blow, but the king is just never getting back away from the danger zone. You know.
Look at the king.
I'm not. Maybe he did see deeper than this. Don't misunderstand me, but you might arguably not need to see deeper than this because my opponent's is just not getting out of this. You know, his pieces are horrible, and he's just never getting back to safety. I only have to concern myself to any degree if the king starts to, you know, get out of the kill zone, I think is what they call it nowadays, isn't it? You know, and if White has to play King f1 as we saw here, basically we just couldn't find after this beautiful move Queen h5. We couldn't really see a way for White to survive at all. It was kind of pick your poison, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the poison he picked was f3, which allowed the natural Rook a to e8, King to d1, desperately trying to run away, last ditch attempt to get out of dodge, to get away from the kill zone. Then after this beautiful move, the very accurate, the best move on the board, Bishop g3, extremely accurate. Yeah? Understandable, there are other strong moves as well. Bishop f4, as you pointed out, no doubt, absolutely not spoiling anything, completely choking White to death, basically, probably winning very quickly as well, you know, no doubt winning very quickly. But this beautifully accurate Bishop g3, which ended up, I agree with what White did here, whether it's the best move or not. All roads lead to Rome, Rome in this case being a black win. I agree with Ricky G, try and just keep the material, because there's no point, you know, you don't have enough material left to give back. So you might as well just, you know, whether you know you're losing anyway, just try your best to make, at least prove it, Simon, you know. And of course, in no uncertain terms did you prove it. Queen h1 check, knight f1, and then this beautiful finish, a beautiful tactical flourish just at the end. Difficult for me to see, not so hard for Simon to see. Rook takes e3, and that was where the game ended. Just to point out the beauty of this, the knight is pinned obviously on f1, so Rook takes e3, and then just to make this humorous point again, Rook takes e3, and the queen, which never should have been on d3 in the first place, in my opinion, and most other people's opinion as well. I don't think I was alone in that. Couldn't even do its job from d3, which was needed to both protect the rook on e3 and protect the
Poor
knight
queen.
on f1. The poor queen.